Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are back with the Dynasty Tailgate podcast, part of the Semi-Pro Fantasy Sports Podcast Network, and always a part of the IDP Army. All right, today, folks. Last week we talked about wide receivers. I'm not going to lie, it was kind of a mess. I've got this one a lot more organized than I did last week, so I appreciate you, those of you that listened last week. We got to get those preseason reps in. We got to get the reps to get us ready for the season. But today we're going to talk about running backs, and we have a first round running back in the mix already. I mean, he is going to be probably the highest coveted running back since probably Christian McCaffrey to come out in the first round. So, I mean, how much more can you be excited than that? But I mean, first, before we get to all that, let's tailgate. All right, welcome. It's July. We're getting closer to the season, everybody. I appreciate you being here today. I appreciate you listening in. This is going to be pretty Devy heavy podcast, I think. But it's just at the same time, we're still preparing for the college football season. We're getting the names out there. We're getting the people you should be watching. So we're just going to set, this is kind of an open the notebook, just kind of lay out the pages, and you can come up with your own conclusions. So, like always, I just want to mention this is only running backs. The best 10 are, well, I actually have 11 today, but the best running backs that are draft eligible. So, you're not going to hear TreyVeon Henderson's name. He is the best running back in college football, in my opinion. He's the Ohio State running back. He is not eligible to be drafted until 2024, so we are going to leave him out of the discussion today. But I just want to preface this entire discussion by saying that he is the best college football running back. If you are in a Devy draft, or if you are trying to get into Devy, he is the name that you need to know. If you need a running back, if you want the best running back prospect that you're probably going to get for the next probably 3 years, and probably the best one you're going to get since Jonathan Taylor, even though we weren't completely sure what we were getting with him, he's going to be your guy. I believe there's a lot of good running backs in 2024, but like Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, not going to be talking about him today, but he is a really great running back for Wisconsin, the next running back in that lineage to give us some good running backs. So today we are only going to talk about the 2023 draft eligible running backs, and we're just going to start. Let's just start at the top. It's Texas. It's Bijan Robinson from the University of Texas. Now, this is an interesting player here. He's going to go in the first round of the draft, where that's pretty much set in stone. He would have to really collapse this year under Steve Sarkisian and the OC, I believe his name's Flood. He would have to completely fall apart this year to, I think, get himself out of the first round equation. So it's been a pretty roller coaster of a ride for Bijan Robinson so far. So freshman year, when he was a redshirt freshman, 700 yards, 4 touchdowns, 15 receptions, 196 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which was pretty solid at the time. We all were like, oh, wow, this guy's going to be the guy we need to watch. We need to pay attention to this guy because he's going to have a pretty special career, which led to, and then we ended up, having the firing, and then of Tom Herman. Then we bring in Steve Sarkisian from Alabama. And this is where we were going to finally see Bijan Robinson, finally see him be his best self at the University of Texas. And what we got last year was kind of a mixed bag. I'm not going to lie to you. So it was 195 yards, 195 attempts, 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns, as well as 26 yards or receptions and 295 yards and 4 touchdowns. So 1,400 yards total for scrimmage. It wasn't quite what we were hoping for, I don't think. I think I can speak for everyone out there when we kind of saw what he did his freshman year, and then we were hoping last year would be the heavy work from Bijan Robinson. He was outplayed in some games by the running back on the opposing team. I'm always going to throw it in there. When Oklahoma played Texas, Kennedy Brooks, who went undrafted, this past draft. Completely outran and outplayed Bijan Robinson in that game. It was a historic collapse from Texas. I highly recommend going back and watching it because it was a fantastic game. But we're here to talk about Bijan Robinson right now. So I still think he is the prospect that you're going to want in this upcoming draft. I'm not going to lie. The Jets have been cooled slightly. I think we were all kind of expecting him to be the Saquon Barkley of this class, the guy that the immediately impactful player that would come in and immediately able to take your team from really bad to really good, like Saquon Barkley did for a lot of teams when he was drafted first overall. He ended up helping a lot of teams turn their complete dynasty seasons around when he came into the team. I want to cool that down a little bit, and it's only because he is still an extremely raw talent for Texas, and I need to see a little bit more, and I think we as a whole need to see a little bit more of those just cleaning up of the game that we did not see last year. It was a little loosey-goosey, and it was a little bit just not clean. It was a little rough, too rough, in my opinion, for Bijan Robinson. And look, he's still the number one guy in this class. He's going to be the number one pick in dynasty drafts next season. He is, depending on his landing spot, he's going to go to a team that is in desperate need of a running back, I assume. I'm looking at you, Houston, trotting out Marlon Mack, trying to fool us, or like Atlanta, even though I think that they're going to go quarterback, so I don't think it would be there. But one of these teams that actually needs a running back, we're not going to have any of this goofy stuff we had this year where the Jets, who already had Michael Carter, decided to take Breece Hall, which is like, damn it. Well, Breece Hall would have been great on his own, but now you've put him with Michael Carter, so all of the value kind of, like Javonte Williams, when he came out for that draft, he went to Denver, split time with Melvin Gordon, and we were kind of like, damn, I was really hoping he would get more of the workload here, and he didn't. And I'm afraid that if that happens to Bijan Robinson, it's not going to be good for his fantasy value, obviously. I don't need to tell you that. But I just think that he needs to be by himself. He needs to be the guy. What's scary about this is first-round running backs usually go to bad teams, and those teams usually stay bad. Look at McCaffrey, for example. Look at the Giants with Barkley, for example. They took those running backs high. Those teams have been stinkers ever since. Now, that's not totally their fault. They also have not drafted very well. They've gotten quarterbacks that have not really been able to shape up and make that offense, really hum. But, still, it does not bode well for Bijan Robinson as far as the team being good. But he can overcome. So I've spent entirely too long on one player, but we're going to go into this next season, and he is going to be put up on a pedestal. And you all are going to understand what I'm talking about now, then, when it's going to be like, this is the best player since blah, blah, blah. Oh, he's shades of Marshawn Lynch. I just want to give you all the slight disclaimer I think that everybody needs with Bijan Robinson. It's just slight disclaimer. That's all. I'm not saying not to draft him. I'm not even saying that you have to be down on him. I mean, I'm excited for him going into the season. I'm excited to see what he does. Steve Sarkisian year 2. I'm excited for that wholeheartedly. I just need to see him clean it up a little bit. That's all. So, Bijan Robinson, firmly at the number one spot in this draft. He is not going to lose it. I'm very comfortable saying that. Last year, we kind of went in thinking, oh, is it going to be Isaiah Spiller? Is it going to be Breece Hall? Is it going to be, I didn't even know Kenneth Walker was going to be that guy, but, he ended up being that guy. We didn't really know. It was kind of a mystery. Everybody was like, oh, it's definitely a second-round running back in this class. There's no first round. This guy is first round. This guy is premier. This guy would have been the first running back taken last year. That would have 1,000% been the case. So, don't want anybody to lose sight of that. Bijan Robinson is the guy. Okay, moving on. We won't spend as much time with everybody else, but he is the premier guy in this class, and so he is the one you need to know the most because he is the guy. If you're holding on to those 2023 first round picks, and you're like, man, I'm really hoping some of these hit, and you get the first pick, I just happen by chance to get the first pick overall in next draft. Bijan Robinson's going to be your guy. So I just need you to know what you're going in and looking for when you're looking at his game, because the stats are good, but they could have been better. And I just need you to know that if you go into this, you need to be able to see that he could have been better, but he's still good. He's a lot of raw talent. He still is going to kind of depend a little bit on where he goes, but he is going to be the alpha wherever he goes. So just a guy that you need to watch out for. Okay, on to number 2. So from here on out, these are all guys that honestly a lot of other analysts have flip-flopped all sorts of ways. So I'm not saying there's any consensus to any of this, but this is just my opinion going into it. And that starts with Jahmyr Gibbs. So he played at Georgia Tech, a historical running team. That's all they did is run there. He transferred to Alabama to take over for Bijan Robinson. So there has been talk that maybe he would not be the starter for Georgia Tech or for Alabama this coming season. I have heard that talk and whispered. And if that's the case, maybe he can be a little bit or should be a little bit lower down on this list. But he's playing, if he is the guy and he's playing with Bryce Young in that offense, then I don't really see how you can hate on him. So 5'11", 200 pounds, coming from Georgia Tech. Last season, 12 games played, 143 attempts, 746 yards, 4 touchdowns, 35 receptions, 465 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So as you can kind of see what I'm getting at here, it's not necessarily that it's just his running that you're going to be believing in, but it also is going to be the passing. He is in a new offense, so it may take a little time to adjust, but I trust Nick Saban, as should you. He has put out plenty of good running backs in the past, and this will just be the next one and the latest one in his line of amazing running backs. I mean, we didn't really know what we were going to get with Bijan Robinson. We still don't. Looks like he's maybe the goal line back for Washington this next season, so that was kind of a disappointing story. But honestly, there was flaws in Bijan Robinson's game that we weren't sure of. So we kind of just, had to take that with a grain of salt anyway. But Jahmyr Gibbs, now he's played on Georgia Tech, and now he's going to play on Alabama. So there's a little bit of mystery there that just has me intrigued enough to think that this guy could vault up. Because, if you're playing at Georgia Tech and now you're playing at Alabama, obviously your stock's going to rise. And I think that based on how Nick Saban has been able to put players in the NFL and put people in the best positions to play, and if he is the featured back, I mean, he's going to be playing at the end of the season. He's going to be in the playoff game. He's going to potentially be in the national championship. And those are high-profile games. That's what gets people excited. I mean, hell, Trey Sermon ended up a third-round running back in the NFL, and then he was a pretty high sleeper pick for most people in most drafts, almost exclusively based on what he did in the Big Ten championship and then what he did in the playoff game, because he was a very useful part of both of those games behind Justin Fields, and we were just excited to get him. So this is what I'm saying is potential for Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is I think he's a lot more talented than Trey Sermon, but I think that this is just simply a guy that we need to keep our finger on, because if you're watching Alabama, you're going to see their offense be good. He is a guy that we need to keep the finger of the pulse on, and so Jahmyr Gibbs is number 2. On to number 3, we're going with Sean Tucker, 5'10", 210 pounds, out of Syracuse. Now, I know what you're thinking to yourself. Sean Tucker, that's interesting. He still says he's a freshman. Yes, he was able to take advantage of the COVID year in 2020, so it didn't count as his year. Last year was his technical red shirt freshman year. And then 2022, we'll see what he can do. But last year, I mean, these numbers are going to make you bananas anyway. 246 rushing attempts, 1,496 yards, so just shy of 1,500, 12 touchdowns, 20 receptions, 255 yards, and also 2 receiving touchdowns. Now, he is the complete package, in my opinion. So you're getting a guy that has done and shown exactly what he's needed to thus far. And the ACC is not a bad conference. It's one of those things where, you think that just because he's playing teams like Ohio, Rutgers, Albany, like those are bad games. But like against Boston College last year, for example, 26 rushes, 207 yards. Like we can take that to the bank. Against Clemson, a very vaunted defense, in my opinion, 22 rushes, 157 yards. Like that. This guy can do all of the things that you need him to do at the next level, and he's only going to be a freshman this year, technically, by the weird ways that the NCAA does their rules. Now, it wasn't his fault. The pandemic year didn't count, and then he did get a redshirt year. So this year will be his freshman year technically, but he is a very proficient runner, a guy that we need to be paying attention to. Coming out of Syracuse, I'm not saying that's a small school or anything. It's definitely not. But he has shown that he has the ability to rush well against good defenses. And I think that moving forward, we can definitely see him make a good potential move. I'd still think we're talking second round here. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, could be in the first round based on just simply how things go. But I'm interested, very interested to see what Sean Tucker is able to do at Syracuse this year against that ACC competition. It's going to be very strong. On to number 4, and we're talking Zach Evans. So Zach Evans was at TCU the last couple of years. Highly underutilized player, by the way. I don't want to shortcut that at all. Last year, he only played 6 games, 92 rushes, 648 yards, 5 touchdowns. He also had a couple receptions, like 10 receptions or so, 130 yards and 1 touchdown receiving. Highly unutilized player at TCU, which is why he transferred to Ole Miss. So he is going to be under Lane Kiffin now. He's going to get that bump. He also gets new quarterback Jackson Dart, who transferred from USC. Lane Kiffin has done the fantasy football version of making his own college football team. He has taken players that were discarded by their teams. Well, Zach Evans was not discarded by TCU. Let's make that 100% clear. He wanted an upgrade to boost his stock because he was being underutilized at TCU. But let's get the metrics out there. He's 5'11", 195 pounds. He's going to be a redshirt sophomore going into this year, so he'll be around 20 when he is playing this season. I don't think he has a lot to prove. He was a 5-star coming out of high school. He was a very highly coveted prospect. It was kind of bananas at the time that he picked TCU, but also I understood it, I guess, in a way, because it's like you wanted to bring that back. You know, LaDainian Tomlinson, historic TCU Horned Frog. Maybe Zach Evans wanted to, build a legacy like that. I don't know. I'm just speculating by saying that. I don't know. But he picked TCU. That's where he chose to go to school for the first 2 years. It did not go particularly well. It's not necessarily at his fault. That team was bad, and it just was. And we all can appreciate Gary Patterson and what he did for that for the TCU program over the years. And he definitely had some really good teams coming out of there. It just wasn't it for Zach Evans. And I can understand what he was thinking. Ole Miss just lost their entire offense to the draft, so they needed to reload. Zach Evans needed a place to go. Lane Kiffin does put players into the NFL. Now, we can argue whether those players have been successful or not. I don't mind that argument at all if you wanted to go that route. But Zach Evans, a little bit of mystery this year because he'll be with Ole Miss. He's never played with Jackson Dart before. This will be a new offense for him, new offensive line. But I do believe that with the players they have, he is going to be able to excel in that offense. And honestly, Ole Miss kind of used a little bit of a platoon last season. So I think Zach Evans will have a good shot at making an impact there right away. And like I said, transfer quarterback or transfer running back. We don't exactly know what we're going to get. All right, on to number 5. This is one of my favorite players in this draft, and that's Zach Charbonnet from UCLA. He's 6'1", 222 pounds, 21 years old. Chef's kiss. Again, I'll give a double chef's kiss. Those are great metrics coming in for a running back. 6'1", 220 pounds. Are you kidding me? Almost all running backs that come in with those metrics end up doing well at the next level. It's just it's science. And it's been how it's been. So Zach Charbonnet started out at Michigan a couple years ago, and he decided to transfer to UCLA his junior year. I thought for sure that he was going to come out this past draft. He was totally eligible. He would have been one of the best running backs drafted, but he decided to go back to school. And okay, I guess we'll see what he can do. Chip Kelly's still down there at UCLA, so we'll see exactly what he can do. But he had 203 rushing attempts, 1,137 yards, 13 touchdowns on the ground, 24 receptions, 197 yards, 0 touchdowns through receiving. At Michigan, he was pretty well benched by Jim Harbaugh there. I don't fully get what he was doing. I don't understand. Zach Charbonnet was a great running back there, but I understand he needed a fresh start, so he went to UCLA. I thought he personally did enough last season to get a big bump in, go into the draft with a full head of steam. He didn't agree. Okay. I can't blame him for that, I guess. That's completely understandable. And a lot of people, and I will preface it by saying the 2020 season was COVID. He only played 5 games. It's not that he was necessarily underutilized, but he wasn't able to show exactly what he could do. And he was not exactly happy with how things were going at Michigan when he transferred. So I just want it to be stated for the audience that I think Zach Charbonnet could potentially be the second best running back in this class. I would love to see exactly how this season plays out for UCLA. It's was not exactly what they wanted to happen last season, but it also wasn't bad. I think he'll get a lot more opportunity. And literally, I mean, he could probably boost his stock a little bit, but not, I don't think, substantially. So I am kind of interested to see exactly what that means for him at the next level. But again, great college football player, Zach Charbonnet. I cannot wait to see what he does. All right, on to number 6. That's Mr. Tank Bigsby from Auburn. If we all remember last year, Joe tried to buy a Tank Bigsby jersey, and he was scammed out of his money. It was hilarious. Happened on the podcast. I appreciated him for doing that, but he never got that Tank Bigsby jersey. However, you may be buying a Tank Bigsby jersey for your NFL team. 6 foot, 200 pounds. Would love to see him bulk up a slight bit. Plays at the University of Auburn. I think it's just Auburn University. I don't know why I said it. Every school I say University of blank, and it's not always that way. I don't know why I do that. Anywho, 223 attempts last season, 1,000 yards on the ground, 10 touchdowns, 20 receptions through the air, 184 yards, 0 touchdowns. We can blame the efficiency a little bit. We can blame game smarts a little bit. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, go watch his highlights against Alabama last season when he did not know what was going on in the game. Apparently, it blanked his mind. And he ran out of the bounds and stopped the clock, and it gave Alabama the ball back. If he would have stayed in bounds, the clock would have ran, and most likely Auburn goes on to beat the University of Alabama, and it would have been one of the best upsets. But Tank Bigsby is the one to kind of blame for what happened there. But fresh, clean slate this season. The 4.9 yards per rush average kind of bugs me a smidge. I would love to see him get a better thing going. The defenses in the SEC are pretty usually good at run defense, so the fact that he was able to break through and almost get to 1,100 yards is still special. It's nothing to sneeze at. I just think I want to see a little bit more from him. And honestly, I think that he knows that as well. He's another one of these players where if he completely busts out this year, if he proves that he is the guy, like he is the one guy that you cannot do anything about, I think he can boost himself up a little bit too. But for now, we're going to start him out at number 6, way of the road. All right, number 7, Travis Dye from USC. So Travis Dye, 5'10", 200 pounds, was a player at Oregon last season. He was very good at the University of Oregon. CJ Verdell was the guy at Oregon before Travis Dye. They were kind of doing a split backfield situation until CJ Verdell got hurt. CJ Verdell, the hero of beating Ohio State last season. Travis Dye was kind of the second note player there. And then as soon as CJ Verdell got hurt, Travis Dye comes out and he was able to bust out. So let's start out with the bad part of Travis Dye. And that is he is in his 5th year of college football. He is going to be 23 years old when he comes out. That is a little concerning to most dynasty players, and I personally agree. There is a lot to be scared of when you have a 23-year-old running back when he's already gotten 521 attempts so far. You could probably at least add another 200 this season based on what he's able to do. It's scary. It's scary. But let's go for the good first. So last season at Oregon, 211 attempts, 1,200 yards rushing, 16 touchdowns on the ground, 46 receptions, 400 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns through the air. He did it all for Oregon last season. And for that, I think we can all appreciate him being exactly who you would want on your team based on those stats. You can see that is the year that you need to have at that position. However, this year he decided to go to USC and play for Lincoln Riley and play, with Caleb Williams. Travis Dye's stock is going to explode. I'm starting him at number 7 because I still need to see that offense click completely. I saw what Lincoln Riley did last year. Sure, we can go over through all the conspiracy theories of him tanking the offense last season and ruining Spencer Rattler's career. We can go through those until the cows come home. Still need to see it. Still need to see that he is serious and keeping the offense perfect. Because the running backs, for example, were one of the parts of the offense that were heavily lacking last season. Kennedy Brooks' usage was bizarre, to say the least. We don't know exactly what this offense is going to look like, and for that reason, I can't put him any higher than number 7. Also, being 23 years old, already having a lot of mileage on you is a very scary thought. He could potentially have 700 carries coming out of college. That's a little nerve-wracking. It's not quite Jonathan Taylor, but it's still a little nerve-wracking, to be perfectly honest with you. So we'll burst through these last couple because there's a lot of good and a lot of bad with all of them. So Devon Achane, Texas A&M, 5'9", 185 pounds. He's pretty small. He also played aside Isaiah Spiller last season. He was very effective, 130 rushes, 900 yards, 9 touchdowns, 24 receptions, 261 yards, and 1 touchdown. It was a split backfield. I would argue that he was the better running back to Isaiah Spiller last season. I don't think Isaiah Spiller was necessarily used correctly, but I definitely can attest that Devon Achane was the better running back last season. I will say this. I think there's a chance Devon Achane comes back after the season. He's just going to be eligible this year. So if he has a monster crazy year, then there's a good chance he may come out. Texas A&M, heavy running team, so there's a good chance that they could be using that to their advantage. Number 9, Chris Rodriguez from Kentucky, 5'10", 224 pounds. That 220, we love that weight in a running back. That is a very strong. So the reason that I have him down on this list, this is his 5th year. It's the Travis Dye situation. He has not left Kentucky. Last year, 225 attempts, 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. My problem with him is A, 5th year. B, he's not much of a catcher. He had 13 receptions, 61 yards, and 3 touchdowns, which 3 touchdowns, whatever. It was at the goal line. He doesn't catch the ball. That's a huge part to play when you're coming into the NFL. I do like him as a rusher, but I'm afraid that it's going to be a more Brian Robinson type situation than, a guy that can do both like Breece Hall was last season. It's concerning to me a little bit. Number 10 is Mohamed Ibrahim from Minnesota. This is a tragic story. Tragic story. So 5'10", 210 pounds, and you could probably guess it. This is his 5th year in the college football. He'll be 23 going in the draft. He is an actual senior this season. Redshirt senior technically because of the year that he had. So he has been solid most of his career. He started out as a freshman, 1,100 yards on the ground, 200 attempts. Second year, 2019, 114 attempts, 600 yards, 7 touchdowns. It wasn't as great, but 2020, when there was the pandemic year, 7 games played, mind you, 200 yards, 200 attempts, 1,000 yards rushing, 15 touchdowns. He was an absolute freak last year, or the 2020. And so last year going into the season, we all thought, okay, this is it. He is going to be amazing. He is going to be incredible. Comes out his first game, 30 attempts in this game, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he tears his Achilles. And it was a pretty brutal injury, and it's something that I'm not 100% sure if he can come back 100% from. It's tough to come back from those, honestly. We're going to have to see it this year. I don't doubt that he's not going to be in full health, but what is full health when you're coming back from an injury like that? It's pretty tough. And I just need to see it from him. Makes me a little nervous. But I believe in Mohamed Ibrahim. I really hope that he is able to come through. So that's the top 10. I'll give you the bonus, and this is the guy that is the biggest mystery of this draft, and that's Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State. He's 5'6", 176 pounds. And you might be saying to yourself, holy shit, that's small. You're not wrong. Here's the thing, though. So last season, in his sophomore season, 235 attempts, 1,400 yards, 18 touchdowns, 49 receptions, 468 yards pass or receiving, and 4 touchdowns. So that's a whopping 1,800 yards and 22 touchdowns on 287 or 84 touches. Oh, man. Wow. Okay, so I'm not – he's 5'6", 176 pounds. It's kind of hard to quantify exactly what that's going to mean at the next level. I'm not positive. He is extremely small, but he's extremely effective. He's very quick, very twitchy. He's a guy that is going to keep your defense on their toes. I am interested to see what he's able to do. Kansas State always feels like they have these dudes where they just kind of are kind of like, I don't know. It's hard to quantify what they are. But it's hard for me to be excited about it coming out. It's just the size is just unheard of. It's unheard of to be good at the next level. Now, here is the thing. Guess who else went to Kansas State? Darren Sproles. Guess who else was 5'6"? Darren Sproles. I just want to keep it out there. I'm going to let everybody else fill in the blanks there. I'm going to let everybody else trying to understand what I'm saying. Were we scared of Darren Sproles? Yeah, a little bit. Was he effective at the NFL level? Sure was. Just going to throw it out there. That's all. Just going to throw it out there. Just going to let you all can, I'm just telling you where the water is. You can go drink if you want to. Just saying. So he's number 11, Deuce Vaughn. Very excited about him. Just to quickly recap, because I know I'm gone a little bit longer than I usually like to, because I usually have to keep it about 30 minutes. The one guy you're going to want from this class is Bijan Robinson. The rest of these guys have a lot to prove. There is a couple of these guys I think that are very good candidates to come back for their senior seasons or their junior seasons in some cases, because there's a lot of redshirt sophomores running around out there. So that is something to monitor. Zach Charbonnet last year surprised the hell out of all of us saying that he was going to go back to school. We all thought for sure he was going to come out. So that's the kind of thing where you just don't know. And so to get excited about any of these guys in particular is a little, take it with a grain of salt. Bijan Robinson is 1,000% coming out. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Jahmyr Gibbs, you could probably take that to the bank that he's going to come out. A lot of these fifth-year guys are definitely going to come out next season. And I don't want to – this shouldn't scare you off necessarily. Najee Harris was 23 when he came out. Did you all say no to Najee Harris? No, you didn't. He was still good, taken in the first round. Still great. Still good going into this season. He's 24. He's old. Dynasty perspective, though, the ages always kind of scare people. I'm just saying it's something to monitor this year if you need to make sure these players are playing at a level that you consider, great. And I just, taking you through and taking you on the path. So that is where we're gonna leave it. That's where we're gonna stop. We're going to leave it at those 11 names to go into the season. Now, that's not saying that somebody's going to come out of nowhere and shock us all. Sure, I'm willing to listen, but for right now, that is the notebook that we have down, everybody. And I just want you to know the running backs going into 2023. So next week, we're going to be talking about quarterbacks. There is a couple in this draft you might like. There might be 6 in this go in the first round. That would be shocking, but not necessarily if you follow this podcast through the entire college football season. This season, I will be bringing you college football coverage every week. I will be talking about every player that you need to know going into the 2023 draft. We're going to be keeping up with. We're going to do kind of like a power ranking system, kind of bringing, this player played bad, so we're going to bring him down. This player is coming out of nowhere. We're going to boost him up. We're going to be doing that the whole season. This is an open notebook for everybody to get ready for their drafts coming in 2023. So it's only July, but draft season's right around the corner. So thank you so much for watching today. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your